Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering one of Miyazaki's masterpiece films, Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. I said it right this time.
Yes. Taking place in a post-apocalyptic world.
That's hard to say.
In the far future, the film tells the story of Nausicaa, a young princess of the Valley of the Wind, and she becomes embroiled in a struggle with Tolmekia, a kingdom that tries to use an ancient weapon to eradicate a jungle of mutant giant insects, and they are big, and attempts to stop the Tolmekians from enraging these creatures.
Yes, and we were kind of surprised when it was taking place because before watching the film, we had it on DVD, we rented it, and we saw the trailers. They showed the original trailers at the time the movie was first released in the 80s, and they would actually tell you what the movie's supposed to be about and the message before you even see the film. Now, usually if that's done now, it kind of spoils the whole movie because they want to tell you everything that happens before you even go get the tickets. But here, it was meant to show sort of like a lesson for everyone who watched it and showing where it was taking place, because it's supposed to be in this future where there was so much disaster, both by man-made and like enraging nature, that it just kind of took over, and now everything on the planet is just a plant life now.
So I have to say, this movie was absolutely wonderful. And as always with Miyazaki's movies, when it was over, I kept saying, is that it? It can't be over yet, and I wanted more. And I really believe that this could have had a sequel. But I don't think Miyazaki's in the habit of making sequels.
No, I think I might have heard of one, but most of the time it's just one movie, one story, and that's it. There aren't a bunch of sequels to one story for him.
Right. So this great movie had an equally great English dubbing cast.
Yes, we were surprised at how many big names were in here. And being that it's Disney, that's partially why there's so many.
Right.
Like they had Patrick Stewart in here.
Yes.
They had Shia LaBeouf at the time, who was also in Even Stevens and some other Disney properties.
And Cam Clark, who we know from Monster High.
Right. Some voice acting stars like James Arnold Taylor,
Peter Cullen,
Frank Welker,
yes,
Tress MacNeil. And then they had
Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
we were so excited.
And we couldn't believe it. And Jodie Benson from I think no, it's not Beauty and the Beast. I think it's The Little Mermaid. I believe it's either Little Mermaid for Ariel or Beauty and the Beast for Belle, one or the other.
And Uma Thurman, who I've seen in quite a few movies.
Yeah,
so it was a really great voice cast.
Oh, and Tony Jay was the narrator in
yes,
the beginning of the movie. So,
and then they had some that really didn't get a lot of billing, like Jeff Bennett, D. Bradley Baker, B.J. Ward.
There are actually some of them that don't even have listings, like they don't know who did some of these voices, because there were quite a few characters in here. Now, granted, there were only like a handful that were the main ones, whether protagonists or side characters or something, and a lot of the rest were kind of minor or background, but there was still quite a few characters in here. And even no matter what type of role they played or their position in the movie, they were still memorable, and you still were interested in seeing them. Unlike other movies we know.
And as usual, the animation was absolutely beautiful. The environment was lush and gorgeous, and you had all these strange creatures, like they said, these giant insects that you could only possibly imagine in your mind, but I hadn't. And just the imagination of Miyazaki to create, have these ideas and have these characters created for us to see.
Right. And making the environments and the backgrounds, it wasn't like mostly you see here where people make jungles and it always looks like the Amazon or a rainforest or something pretty basic. And that's usually what they use for bases for making jungle worlds and stuff. But for here, it actually looked like something that from a nuclear disaster. It looked a little more fantasy-like, more than sci-fi. It looked more like something came and took over anyway with these anemone like Nemo, anemone plants and stuff wandering around. They got all these weird hybrid animals, and these are giant insects, giant mosquitoes, and dragonflies and stuff. Everything just enlarged to gigantic proportions. And one of the biggest not hooks, but one of the recurring themes in there is for Nausicaa, she didn't want to kill anything, not the plant life, not bad people, no nothing and nobody. Whenever something was in the way or looked angry, she always wanted to calm it down and get it back to its home so it wouldn't cause any damage to her people.
Right.
And that was very standout because it's very rare you see characters be that empathetic or caring towards like another side or another group of people, because usually it's always very clustered in terms of that with characters, especially now.
And she had a rapport with the creatures, and you see that they would trust her after, I guess, they listened to her and they felt her vibrations, they would trust her. And that was interesting as well. And when she would go back, she would recognize a creature and talk to them when they would come over to her. And it was just a wonderful, I guess, a wonderful trait of this particular character that made her even more lovable heroine.
Right. And here you also must point out that I actually ended up reading before we came to this recording is that there were no antagonists in here. Usually Miyazaki films do have antagonists sometimes, but for this film in particular, no one was really a really cruel or bad person. They were just doing things they thought would help themselves or their respective kingdoms, because they had apparently other kingdoms there. We just didn't see them all. We just hear about them and we see a few people from there, but you don't like travel all over to see each of them.
Right.
And for here, it's like they're doing what they can to survive from the giant bugs. I'll call them they're bugs. The giant bugs, or from just the vast nature itself, because everything's pretty severe. And it ends up resulting sometimes in taking over other places because they need to expand or get more food or something. So in a way, you don't hate the characters for doing that. I mean, you do not like when people are taken out because there was no need for violence, but they're not doing it out of being malicious or because they're tyranny or supposed to be dictators representing real life people. It's none of that. It's just they're doing what they can. So you understand their actions, but you still would prefer them not to take people hostage, hold them at gunpoint, or even kill somebody. Because I think in this whole movie, one character gets killed off, and it's not just because, oh, Disney wants to have that in there. It furthered the plot and really helped things progress even more.
I really liked how her character made an impression on another female character that was seeing more of a more belligerent type character. But just in seeing how she dealt with her people, how her people loved her, how she was dealing with the insects, and how she treated her, she made such an impression on this character that was seen as belligerent and someone who was not agreeable or would even compromise. She made such a difference on her that she didn't kill her.
Right.
And it was like, wow. You know, that's not something you see often in any movie where it's animation or live action. You just don't see a character that influences or impresses another character to that extent.
Right. It's usually shown as one way, or they're stuck in their way, or stubborn or something. So that was definitely something that stand out, even for the time it came out. Now, for the rest of the film, like we said, it's just a really great film because as you're watching it, you get engrossed into the world building of it. Granted, there's not as much as you think, but it feels like there's just way more than what you see because of how everyone is written, and they have their own lore about a knight in blue coming to save them and so forth. Like, of course we got that, but you didn't even recognize or figure out that the minor cliche was even going to happen till it actually happens. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Not because it was bad, just because you're too into what's going on with the movie, because the minute it's on, it's like stuff happens to them. Like the plane gets shot, they're like, oh gosh, should we leave? So they did keep that in terms of things happening like every 5 minutes. So, and all of the voice actors that they chose to play their respective characters, like with Mark Hamill, Patrick Stewart, Shia LaBeouf, and
they were great.
And Alison Lohman, they all were great in performing their roles. And when we watched their interviews, they don't treat some of these roles, they don't treat this role as just something else or just an animation role or something. They are really into the movie that they're working on, where they've seen it in the Japanese dub and before they record, and they really enjoy the movie watching the original language, and they're into the story, and they're loving the story and the message and everything, and they love us so much they want to put that much more effort into it when dubbing it themselves.
Right.
So there is a lot of effort in every aspect of making it, even down to the translations of the film.
Right. And that was one of the great special features. If you haven't seen this movie and you do rent it, you should watch it because it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It really just adds more to your experience of having seen the movie after you see it.
Right. And yeah, we definitely recommend it because it's really unlike anything else out there.
Mm-hmm.
Even for Miyazaki, and we understand why this is considered not just one of his masterpieces,
Mm-hmm.
it's just considered one of the best movies ever made. It doesn't even matter if it's saying animation, anime, or just Disney. It's just considered one of the best films ever.
Right.
And we definitely are enjoying this role of us watching Miyazaki films because lately we have been starting to rent all of them one at a time. Ones we haven't seen, of course, or haven't owned.
Right.
And we are really enjoying seeing all of his work and knowing this is one of his best works. It definitely shows to the testament of his writing and his skills,
Mm-hmm.
all the way from the time of his first movies to the last one they made before the first time closing. And we're glad that the studio was coming back because we definitely want to see more stories from there. And we hope they're just as timeless as these.
Absolutely. So if you've seen Nausicaa and you love it like we do, or if you've seen it and you differ in your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
let us know what you think in the comments below. And if there are other Miyazaki films you've seen and we haven't gotten to yet that you really would like us to see and review, let us know that in the comments as well.
Right. And be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell below to get updates on new Paws podcasts.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Mask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Hit her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you.